introduction, a quick introduction to the artist, and then I'm going to launch into our dreaded 35 questions.
Launch. We're going to launch. Okay.
It's going to be so much fun. And I think the launch, actually, I'm ready. Eileen's ready as well with a tequila in her hand. So Eileen Murray is a lifetime artist based in Lethbridge, Alberta. She's maintained a constant professional practice since graduating with her MFA from University of Saskatchewan in 2012. Prior to that, a BFA from University of Lethbridge. She's traveled the world, and I actually was trying to go into her intro with all the verve and the vigor that I know it demands, but it's like, this woman has traveled the world. She's been a business person and a farmer and a teacher and a curator. She's been a lot of things, but a full-time artist is what she has always been. She's shown in galleries across North America. She celebrates ideas about domesticity and gender and femininity and things that I think immerse us all in a relationship. And I'm thrilled to see the show all in place, and I think you will be too. So everyone, welcome. This is Eileen Murray. There she is. And the 35 questions are meant to give you a little tiny piece of who this woman actually is. So the concept is not mine, but I've actually made it a nice shortened version. We go through rapid fire questions, none of which relate to each other. And we try to elicit some answers that are honest and a lot of fun. And we try to make sure that we keep moving through it. So it's not, there's never a stopping point. Oh, so as I'm asking them, you can remember that I am not insane. These are specifically not related questions. So Eileen, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so we're going to start easy and it's going to get hard.
Oh, God. That's typically the way I like it. So
I know. How old were you when you first went to art school? The first time?
Oh, the first time, 33.
And the second time?
36.
Describe the greatest kindness ever offered to you by a stranger.
Oh, goodness. I was sitting in having lunch in Calgary, and I was bald in cancer treatments and chemotherapy. And a woman crossed over and came to me, and she said, "I want you to know you look very beautiful."
Oh, that's lovely.
And it was a great kindness.
How many careers have you had thus far?
Oh, Jesus. I'm go random. 44,702.
Can you name 3 of them?
3 of them, yes. I was a shop owner. I was a safety officer for a construction company. And I was a coal mine bus driver.
Oh, that's a good one.
I cleaned the buses. I didn't drive them. I cleaned them.
That is hilarious. Yeah. Tell me, how many canvases are in your studio currently?
Oh my, against one wall, I would say there's a minimum of 20, another 15, and then I've got stacks. So there's probably 50 works out there in various stages of I'm done with you or I'm still going to meet with you.
I'm redoing with you, whatever that's going to be.
Yes, we're still dancing. Yeah.
Well, and that's what the studio feels like every time I get there. It feels like a constant dance.
Yes.
Where and when were you most yourself?
I think right now I'm kind of myself. I'm learning again, and I think the very most myself is when I'm at a river, in the river.
It's the river, and it goes to one of my further questions: prairie or ocean? Oh, but it sounds like it's river.
No, it's interesting. I love the ocean, but I'm definitely a river girl, and also the prairie. I've lived about an equal amount of time on the prairie as in the mountains, and my my comfort is with very much with both of those.
Tell me where the journey has taken. So you are from the past, you went
I'm born in Saskatchewan and in Regina actually, and then was in Manitoba. My dad was a construction worker, and then he got full-time work in the Crow's Nest Pass mining. So we moved there, and I stayed there till I was 27, and then moved to Brooks with a job.
Wow.
Yeah, and then from there I moved to Lethbridge about 3 years ago. Yeah.
Did you keep the first painting you ever made?
Oh, I actually did, yeah. And it was the most horrible, awful painting. And it was because I got accepted to the U of L, and I had never painted a thing in my life. I was like, oh my God. So I bought acrylics, and I have this wee little tight, like 1620 canvas, which I know some people will find big, but for me, it's like, God. And I have a big, like 3-acre, farm backyard, and I'm going to paint this yard on this little 20-inch canvas. And I was so tight. I was so tight. It was like every blade of grass, every brick contour, and it was awful. And yeah, actually, I keep it because I can visit it and remind myself of how far I have come.
That's what I always want to know, because I think that's the measure we all need, and it's so important to have kept it.
Yeah.
Tell me the best year for distinctive fashion in your life.
Oh, well, I have to say, I'm going to have to say every year is a distinctive year in my life. Yeah, I like to walk my own path in that way, and I always have.
I always like harken back. It's like, were you a girl of the 80s?
Oh God, yeah, but during that time, I can say I was also a girl of the 70s, and I wore a deer hide headband with an elk, an elk disc horn holding the fringes. I kind of did it all, yeah, and continue to do so, yeah.
Do you keep any of those pieces?
It's funny because I was gonna, the deer hide was like a soft tan, and it stretched, like it would continue, like it was hard to wear. So I've been, as of late, I feel like I'm going back to being this younger, in my mind, this younger understanding of myself. And I'm like, I need to get one of those headbands again. And my hair's getting longer. I just have to fight the hot flashes when it all lays down on my head.
That's it. There becomes the bigger truth of life, right? It's like, I want to wear the headband, but tell me about your most important studio tool.
Gosh. My palette knife. And I don't paint with a palette knife. I'm actually kind of good at it, and I promised I wouldn't use it because I find it make me have enough effort in some mental way.
Right.
So but it is a tool I use, of course, for mixing color, for scraping down a canvas, for like getting kind of half-ass angry. And there's only a certain palette knife that I like the feeling of. And yeah, that's a definite.
Do you relent to it on the canvas when you get frustrated once in a while?
Oh, sometimes it's not a sometimes that I get frustrated. It's a absolute every session. And if I don't, I get a little worried that the work is coming too easily in some way, that I'm either thinking too image-based, or I'm not pushing kind of opposing ideas of hard soft or cold warm or push pull. And so to become aggravated is quite common for me while I'm working. But then when it seems like it reaches a crescendo, and then that occurs, and then there's like this release of I don't know what, and it just feels like okay, there it is. That's what I'm looking for.
What are you most afraid of?
Oh, myself for sure. Yeah, myself. Yeah. I'm a ball of energy and ideas and soft-heartedness and contradiction, and myself would be my honest answer.
It's a perfect honest answer. Greatest mentor in your life?
Pardon me?
Greatest mentor in your life?
Mentor.
A mentor.
My greatest mentor. I'd have to say it was my late husband in ways of, in non-expected ways, in ways of courage to be yourself and to do what your heart desires, and where your passion is. Even though our passions ran very differently, he probably just taught me the most of anyone I've ever known.
Tell me what you did to make your front door so gorgeous.
Oh, isn't it? Oh my God. So I love to do decorating stuff, and so I thought I'll learn how to do this. So anyway, it's a specialty line of paint that I think a lot of people in the States use. It's called Modern Masters, and it literally has the metal in the paint, so that like a small jar of paint is super heavy because there's literally like copper in this case in it. And then you do what I do, and you apply it and patina it and apply it and patina it, and then shove a jar of Miracle Grow on it outer.
What?
Yeah, and, got the patina where I wanted it. So now I'm just hoping it doesn't eat through the entire door by next winter.
Miracle Grow.
Yeah, well, but Miracle Grow and red wine vinegar. Yeah, to make the process of the patina occur. And it's a 110-year-old door, so there's some beautiful work in it, but it's also a worn out door. So it was kind of like pick and choose where you're going to weather it and try to make it look as old as it is.
It is so cool. It is so cool.
Really, yeah.
You're one of 3 sisters. What's your rank?
Oh God, I'm number 1.
You are number 1.
No, I'm in the middle. I'm the middle sister, and I am definitely in the middle. My older sister tells me what to do, when to do it. Most of the time I listen. My little sister is my cheerleader. My younger sister, I guess I should say. And yeah, we're only 3.5 years apart, complete.
The 3 of you? Really?
Yeah, so it was an interesting teenage experience.
I can't even fathom for your poor folks.
Yeah.
What have been the greatest obstacles in maintaining a full-time professional art practice thus far? The greatest obstacles that you have encountered? It's a huge question.
I was serious with that one. I can illness and injury,
okay.
And also a learning of where learning what is important to me as in a studio practice is valid.
Yeah.
And realizing and re-realizing and reconcentrating on that, as opposed to being a wife, mother, grandmother. So those are I guess, just life and accepting what I wish to do, what I want to do as being a really valid endeavor.
Leading into my next question, do you worry about belonging?
Yes, but in a very yes, I find a great feeling of belonging walking down my street and being recognized as someone who belongs here, just from someone I don't even know, a neighbor that waves. Or now, then I've gotten to know kind of the dog walkers, not know, but you know, we see each other, and that familiarity feels really excellent.
Yeah, I 100% understand that one.
Yeah, and the rest of belonging, I as much as I love the feeling of belonging to our community here, and in somewhat in the larger, like on Instagram and Facebook, I think being an artist for myself anyway, is quite solitary. So I tend to find I get the level of belonging that I require through mostly casual encounters. Not those kind of casual encounters, but the kind where I, you know, say hello to my neighbor and we talk about the weather or whatever. Although, you know, the other is just fine too. It's just
whatever works.
I thought I'd clarify.
Yeah, I was going to say belonging is belonging. What I asked the question very pointedly because of the solitary nature of the studio practice. It's always like, do you care about belonging to something else, so something larger? And the answer was brilliant and beautiful all the way. Next question is show tunes or techno?
Oh, show tune. until it's time for techno.
I have a sense there's both in your world. What was the first thing you thought about this morning?
Oh God, it might just become X-rated.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it. My cough. No, that's a complete lie.
Yeah, fine. It's finding honesty and at the same time.
Yeah. I might have to push us forward on that one as I blush.
I was going to say, we'll just keep going. Have you ever collaborated on an artistic project?
Oh, God, yes. Well, in a sense, I guess. After my undergrad at the U of L here, I curated an exhibition of sorts out in an abandoned farmhouse on one of the farms that we were working near Brooks. And so I asked 13 artists that I know, and we all selected a room, and the idea behind it was about memory and homecoming and what it would be like to be a pioneer farm woman. And it was the centennial year for Alberta. Oh, so that's kind of project. And yeah, and everybody, that was kind of the broad strokes, and everyone just came with their A game, and it was incredible. And the hours put in were truly worthy of every farm wife that's ever worked on a farm. And it was only open to the public for one day. We had 80 people come out, and it was fabulous.
Was there any record of that show anywhere?
Yep, it's totally documented for sure. Yeah.
What was it called?
It was called the Farmhouse Project. Okay. And it was a bit of an ode to Judy Chicago, the Woman House Project, and right. And it was incredible, actually.
It sounds incredible. That's why I need to know more so that I can pass it along.
Yeah.
Are you genuinely introverted or extroverted? I always have to ask the question, but you know.
Yeah, sure. I am genuinely introverted until the occasional time when I'm genuinely extroverted.
All of your answers are this dichotomy of worlds. Yeah,
I would say that reflects me very well. I'm a Gemini.
Yeah, clearly. What is your current most pressing artistic aspiration?
To become, to paint like a fucking girl can paint, I think. To just like ignore and forget about the limitations that I've put upon myself.
I needed to rest with it just to say, I should ask the question about those limitations. And at the same time, it's like, it doesn't even need it. It's everybody knows kind of the balancing act of that. The self-limiting talk.
We have them.
Yep.
Different ways and different reasons.
Different reasons, different ways.
Yeah.
What food reminds you most of your childhood, and do you still eat it?
Oh gosh, my mother's spaghetti sauce, and I'll eat it anytime she has it all.
Does she have to make it, or do you make it now?
No, I do make it, but it's
not the same.
It's fabulous. Like, but my mom's is a good sauce.
Tell me about the most compelling painting that you've ever seen in person. It can only be in person.
Okay. I don't know if it's the most compelling painting. I saw a show of, God, there's a few. It was a show at the Tate in oh goodness, where are the Beatles from? Oh. I had a momentary lapse.
Liverpool.
And it was a comparison of work by Turner, Twombly, and Monet. And the way that the curator explored the ideals of abstraction and mark making and epic, making epicness out of nothing. It took my breath away. Like the whole show was just, the context of the show was fabulous. And the other would be, I was in New York and I saw a show by, gosh, I'm going name blank. Oh, this is great, humongous. It's not Richter, it's the other. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, I had to leave the gallery and cry. So it was lovely.
You know. Yeah. I think a lot of people here will have had that experience. There's a moment you just know.
Yeah.
Tell me about, who do you trust most to critique your work? Why? And why?
Well, that's an interesting one. I know not to trust myself, that's for sure.
Yes. It's hard.
Yes, it is difficult. Usually someone that is not in the arts.
Oh, okay.
Will offer me a version or a comment about what they see or feel or understand in a work that will make me consider it in an entirely different way than if someone who has a background in art making or history, or someone who's more formally educated.
Here's the dreaded question.
Oh no!
Describe your artwork in a haiku. Okay.
I have to put my glasses on for this.
Okay. This is such a dreadful question to ask.
Okay. Color. Fuck. Me. Anger. Lust. Death. Place. Card. Memory.
So good. Okay, I'm glad that one came through. Sometimes I dread asking it, but that was perfection. Do you ever use a color wheel? Have you ever?
I have a color wheel. No, I've never used one. No.
Tell me about whether you're a party giver or a party goer.
I would say I am a giver. But when I go, I have to say I sometimes give her as well.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
Tell me the last time you laughed uncontrollably.
okay, the other day in Costco, I went with an order, and it was the most bizarre order I had great big kites for my grandkids, Replen's vaginal lubricant, and geraniums. So I'm checking through, and I'm like, this is the most random. And I'm loading it in my car, and I burst out laughing in the parking lot, like laughing. I couldn't move, thinking, this is my life. This is what I've become.
Well, getting through the checkout though, that's
checkout. I made some levity, and I when I kind of looked down at my order, and I said, I promised I wasn't going to get any more bedding out plants, but here I am.
Always talk about the geranium.
At least something's blooming.
That's so blooming. Exactly.
Yeah.
What did your parents want you to be when you grew up?
Well, a nurse, and I actually did go to nursing school, and yeah.
Did you?
And mostly my parents would have wanted me to be anything that allowed me to be self-sufficient.
With which artist in history have you most aligned your style, do you think?
I think that somewhat shifts for me. Color-wise, I look at Matisse a lot, yeah. And I certainly, in every way, Matisse is amazing, but there's a gestural thing that happens with Twombly and Joan Mitchell's work, like. Mm-hmm. So I think there's maybe like 6 that I continue to go back to. Van Gogh is one, Matisse, Picasso, his color work is unbelievable. Yeah, so Bouillard for sure.
And yeah. none of the brutalists. I'm always like, just right on the edge with your work. It's like, it's beautiful and it's elegant, and then there's just that moment where I'm like,
yeah, I think I explore that a lot in my life, as in outside of my art as well, in terms of what's considered beautiful or shocking or arresting, or like wearing a nose ring, for example, is one, small me feeling that, you can present beauty in many ways, but you also need a harsh or hardness, perhaps, that,
yep.
Like there's like layers, and I'm interested in that, and
your work shows that. Your work shows those little, that whatever that little last bit of the battle is.
And I think too that beauty is everything about beauty is a judgment. There's no 100% this is beautiful to everybody in the world.
Right.
So I think that it's a harsh, beauty is a very harsh idea that I think needs more discussion in the world.
And hopefully there is cause through what you are producing, to just even feel it. They don't, even if it can't be articulated, to feel that balance.
I think there has to be an edge at everything. No matter what it is, there needs to be it needs to be double-sided, razor commercial, double-sided.
Double-sided, for sure. And there is always a little bit of a razor's edge. You can feel that. That way.
I think a goal for me is to make that edge a little sharper as I go, and that's I struggle or dance with that every time I am in studio, which is daily.
Lovely. Final 4 questions.
Okay.
Best travel for your artistic self. Where would you go?
Where would I go?
Right now.
Right now. I would go right now, I would go to Portugal, actually. And I would be looking at tiles and texture, and
I've seen that in what you've been playing with right now.
Yeah, and
right.
it's sort of the pattern and how to marry that with the color of light that's there, and what I imagine is the warmth of that sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd like to explore, and I've never been there.
So it definitely is the next, whatever the next travel is, that's when.
Yeah, it'll be in there. Yeah.
What's the constantly wet color base on your palette? What is constantly in use?
Ultramarine blue is a cad red light. Payne's gray.
Payne's gray. What is it with Payne's gray? I actually just for the first time pulled out Payne's gray the other day, and it's just something.
I think Payne's gray there's a translucency that lends itself to blue, to purple, to red, which of course blue and red mixed is your purple, but it's just a, it's cool, but it's cool, but it's one of those cool colors that are inviting and not repelling. I think it's cool anyway. Like cool is in temperature.
Yeah, no, it is definitely.
It might be one of those paints that sit on the edge for some people of, do you find this warm or cool? And I love that, just that maybe if I use this cool here, I can still get it to recede or to pop forward, or, and play it against a true warm or a true cool, and get a push-pull that's happening without it being so black that you lose, that I don't want to get sucked right in, but Payne's gray gives you a fade back in some way.
I absolutely adore eliciting that kind of commentary on art, because even people that are not artists that are on here, there's this beautiful moment where they have a little glimpse into all of the calculation that goes on.
Oh, it's just like to me, painting is such a formal exploration in all these layers of what I want to express when I'm painting. Like, do I want to express a beautiful, what would be maybe considered a friendly color, let's say pink? And how do I make that have an edge? How do I make that be jolting rather than a pleasant color to see? And how do I make a bright recede when it wants to come forward? And how do I play with a two-dimensional plane and maybe make it so that a part of it comes towards you and a part of it goes away? And I am fascinated by that every day.
It informs, just hearing that again, that little thought train informs so much for the viewer, just because it's really important for people to stop, to pause, and to consider not simply the content, and when content is obvious, when content is gifted to people, it is, of course it's easy, but there's so much more, and that's, I hope, what these kind of conversations give people.
Sure, and I think it informs the content, and it is a part of the content.
For sure.
And I think art, people who view art over time and experience come away with the feeling of something perhaps more than what they registered as an image or content.
For sure.
And I respect abstract painters immensely that can create a feeling of content without there being an imaged imagery-based work.
I explain it to the public often. It's like, it's a language that's so refined that, you know, that it takes a lifetime to come to that language.
Absolutely.
In abstraction. Okay, we have gone so far over time, just as expected.
Okay.
So two last questions. Do you remember your first art sale, the minute somebody paid for something?
Yep. It was at the U of L. It was a wax. It was I was working with oil paint and wax, and it was a figure study. And I sold it, and I regret it to this day.
That's always a good question too. Do you regret selling it? Yep. I hope whoever has it loves it.
Me too.
Okay, this is a biggie, but it's one of those, we're at the tail end. If you could capture just one thing to wrap up this artist's life, what would it be?
Just one word?
Yeah.
Vibrancy.
A good word. And a good way to go into the next stage. So we're going into the show, which is Deja Vu, having been here before. Everybody is, you know, they're all reflecting on their COVID experience, and each in such a different way that I feel really honored that I get to see each person's interpretation of that experience. And this is another one of those in the next, you know, phase as we open up. And this feels truly like the opening up, the next phase. This is just a brief artist statement. We're going to go into the imagery. So this is where it started for me. I know this is not where it started for Eileen, but for me, this piece signaled such a shift in the practice, and such a, you know, the layering and the veil of mystery was so deep in this piece that I fell madly in love. And that's when I knew that this was going to become a show. So I wanted to show it first. And I loved, there was so many crappy definitions of deja vu, but I love that it was the intense feeling of being on the very brink of a powerful epiphany. For me, that was like the winner. This is totally what it felt like. So these are some just quickie videos of in the studio, and just so you can see process, you can see the activity and the movement and the spontaneity. And I relish these little short time lapses because it really forces people to understand how process goes. It's just, you know, it's completely intuitive and at the same time responsive. You're responding to whatever happened last. And that's what this one signals really deeply for me. And then just this view of the bigger part of the studio, that it's constantly sort of rife with books and stuff. There's sprayers, there's stuff going on all the time. And I'm lucky I get to be in the studio. I get to see the material that's inspiring it. There's dead flowers that are inspiring these moments. There's paintings that will be painted over. There's kind of a constant ecosystem going on in every studio. So I just wanted everybody to see that a little view of those two things, and then move into just this specific work of this show. So I think when curating through the work as it came out, it was all about those interiors. I know, Eileen, it harkens back to a body of work a long time ago, but the interior was such an important theme. Mm-hmm. And then the veils just added to me this kind of veil translucency, added such a huge layer to that idea of the interior space. So I just wanted you to I wanted to show those pieces first and kind of speak to why and how you moved into this, adding the veils over the surface.
Part of the veils for me were, like, technically to create a translucency is a challenge, and that I enjoy very much. And I think another is the pandemic itself is a veil of how we have all experienced our life in the last while. And, you know, we're looking through a window or looking through memory at what we used to do and what we used to have. And then on a more personal note, with my loss of my husband, you know, I kind of rolled in from active grief into veil, into pandemic. And so it's been kind of a way, I guess it's a way to process how I've been seeing my life.
And you know, there are some that are kind of bursting out of the veil, but there is a lot of that shadow.
I think that's a good word. I think I am certainly bursting out of my veil, but it everything takes time, and you poke back in and you go, you know, back into the corner again, and then come out again another time and feel the water and see how it feels. Yeah.
And all of these, I mean, there's so many suggestions. I love how you're moving backwards and forwards between, you know, expressionism pushed to the point of almost abstraction, and then you move back into, you know, really directing the paint. And I can see kind of the constant balancing act. And it's you know, the great part, the refreshing part is that it has no kind of commercial intent. You're not making it more literal for the public. You're making it more literal because there's a thought that's more kind of crystalline and you're portraying that. Yeah. So I'm kind of flipping through them so people can really see that, the back and forth, the constant back and forth. I fell in love.
I always hope to create a like levels of, just like in photography, where you have, you know, your you know, where your lens lands and your depth of field. And I think painting expresses that, but it's not to say that photography doesn't do that in exceptionally complicated ways. But I find painting, there's these languages of like color temperature, active brush stroke, small area, large area, kind of like music, like staccato, or like, you know, like what creates this like vibration up front, but then what sucks you back and lets you settle in. And that for me is really exciting.
I'm pulling up the next images just for magnitude, magnitude of these pieces, so people can really see scale. And they are grand in scale. And I know specifically you work toward the largesse, but I also love.
I'm kind of largesse, so why would there, right?
Why is that the term? Yeah, I chose an interesting term. There is very little small work and very few small ideas in any of this work. So that's all I was trying to say. I think when I go through them, it would be hard for me to identify from the imagery small works from large unless I actually put them in situ for people to understand. And then I really feel like I wanted to leave the last 10 minutes, literally you are 8 minutes from the end. So I want to leave some time for a few questions. I think it's so much of what we've talked about has borne a lot of question time. I wanted people to see this whole kind of roundup of works as they were dropped off, with a Chrissy Nickerson thrown in the back there because we weren't cleaning up from one show. But this was collecting all the work in Lethbridge, and you can really see the magnitude. The paintings are kind of off in all corners trying to find space. So when you see them in the gallery, you'll understand how they work together, but this is a really great view. I'm hoping that everybody feels comfortable enough to ask questions of Eileen.
I'm pretty offish. I don't know.
She's so standoffish. Does anybody have a question?
I'll start.
I would like to know where her secret garden is, because whenever I look at these paintings, it makes me think very much of somebody's internal secret garden, and also where on earth is she finding all these flowers? I mean, I see them both at the same time. So, okay, Eileen, where's your secret garden?
Oh, I think that's sitting right between my eyes somewhere.
Great answer. Great answer.
I do garden. I'll take that somewhat literally. I do garden a lot, and I've traveled a lot, and I mostly just see the shapes and try to maybe capture some vibrancy and color. And I'm very interested in decay and death. And and I think there's a beauty of that process, especially with flowers.
I like it because it's like the cycle of life. Flowers are like the cycle of life. So yeah, beautiful work. Thank you.
Very much.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
Eileen, you have kind of come back and forth between still life and interiors throughout your practice. And I'm wondering if you could just say a little something about both of those things, like what it means to you to paint an interior versus a still life. And I think one of the things that's so compelling about these recent works is that they're really blurring those two things into one. And yeah, maybe you could say a little something about that.
For my growing up, my mother was and is an incredible decorator, and I very much was exposed to color and pattern, and while they weren't formal art lovers at all, my mom is really incredible at putting something together, and I love the feeling of being welcomed into a home and it looks a certain way, but I also like the uncomfortableness of something being a little bit off. And I try to play with that in my interior works of an inviting spatial perspectival kind of ability to walk into a room in a painting or the painting of a room, and yet there's a color or something or texture there that is quite repulsive, and maybe you want to back out. And I like that dichotomy of the illusion of what domestic space is. There can be a lot of stress, quarantine, for example, mourning, like so many things that happen within a domestic sphere that can be explored, but you don't have to beat it with a stick either to talk about the sticky stuff that happens domestically. And the still lifes within the interior, for me, it's kind of just like a journey into that like focal plane of, well, what makes this, why would this be in this room, and how can I play with it and make it be the feeling for, I hope that makes sense. So that's
Can I ask a really quick follow-up question?
Sure.
When you talk about the way that you're painting, you're almost like describing the personality of the paint, but I wonder if you also think about the narrative that comes out of these spaces, like when you're painting, do you think about like who it is that lives in this space, like who it is that collected these flowers, that kind of thing?
Right. I don't. I give us not so much personal narrative for sure. Most of the work will come out of, I'll be remembering something, or I will have, been immersed and looked at 20 different Instagram accounts, and there's one small little thing that just kind of goes click, like, oh, what if I did that? What if I did something like that? My rendition of that. What happens there? And then that might create another memory. Like today I was painting and I couldn't stop thinking about the house party at the Kubik's house that came. It was in the winter when the Van Halen album Jump came out. And it was a huge party. They threw the best parties. And when we played that album was played over and over again that night, and in the music, the lyrics, it's like, and jump, and everybody in the house jumped over and over, and you could feel that house move. And that was what was in my head today. And that definitely in some way has come out in the paint.
Can I ask a sort of subsequent question in that, are you averse to telling the public that much about each piece, or do you feel the need anyway?
Oh no, I don't feel the need at all. But because I was I went and got a pedicure, and I was anticipating this talk tonight, and I was thinking about, how do I want to talk about what's in here and where it comes from, and I just kept going back to that memory, and it's like, okay, like this painting looks nothing like that memory, but there's triggering things within it that have me thinking of it.
Do you feel like in just that, the moment of description you've captured, have you captured what you were questioning yourself earlier on?
I don't know about that. Like I think that becomes evident as the painting becomes formalized. I think I can say verbally, or written, I can make definite correlations. I think it's much more difficult to do it in a painted form. Mm-hmm. So I think I can't say for sure if I've bridged that gap or not, but is something in the moment of that painting that is where my intention was.
Does anybody else feel like there's a question? Because I certainly know.
I have a question.
Great.
Hi, Eileen. Sorry, I missed part of your presentation.
Okay.
I zoned out in the studio, my kids, sorry. I just want to say, I just adore everything you do. I follow, I'm like the groupie. I love you, Eileen.
I used to be a groupie too, we'll talk about that private though.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, I'm curious because I see, because I follow you, I see all these posts, Instagram and all that. Do you work basically 7 days a week? Or do you have a specific day or 2 days or afternoons? I'm just curious because you seem like you're always working. So how does it look like?
Yeah, I am always working. I have tried in the last little while. I have been kind of piecemealing, and I'm feeling it out. And so I'll do some ceramic work, and I'll do some gardening. I take a lot of walks because I've got 3 dogs.
Okay.
3 dogs. And I've been experimenting with different times in the studio, and evenings seem to be like for the literal painting part. And yeah, I spend probably 4 to 6 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week in my painting studio. Yeah.
In your studio.
Yeah. And I'm at that, it's where I want to be. I would like to stay longer. I've got some physical limitations that some days I can and some days I can't. But I'm also trying to let life inform me and take those walks and look at flowers and color and light and let all that kind of mix in and give it time to be expressed in my formal studio work.
Yeah, you need that time for that too.
Yeah.
And I have another question. So you were talking about the party, the Van Halen, the house moving. Yeah. So that was like your starting point. But are you gonna finish the painting when you feel like that's exactly that feeling, or is this just a starting point and then you're gonna go somewhere else?
Not even close. By the time I'm done that painting, it may not even be a blip on my radar. But
okay.
During the painting of this piece, that is where my head kept going back to it. And I think it was a little bit because I was laying in a very abstracted kind of rhythmic pattern that I was thinking of a picket fence. And then I laid in a kind of a roof line that reminded me of a chalet. And those two things took me to the cubics. And
wow, I wish I could be in your head.
Yeah, sometimes it really hurts. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Well, I have some comments, I suppose.
Chrissy?
Yeah. So I love your work. It's so luscious and absolutely gorgeous. I loved your comments on how whenever you're even thinking about beauty, it's a comment on beauty. And I could really see your freedom in the paint and how it's just flowing, and the viscosity, the veil, the way you were talking about the veil, and then combining that with paint is just awesome.
Thank you.
And I also, just listening to you talk, like I haven't heard you talk before. You're obviously incredibly creative with tons of passion, and you bring that into your work, but then you let the painting stand alone, which is really awesome too, right? To be able to send them off into the world, and then people can interpret them and see if they fit in the details of their lives. So that's really beautiful. And I also like your honesty of, bringing from life what's in front of you, as well as your honesty of Instagram, because I love Instagram.
Yeah.
I love how we can follow all of these strangers around the world and see what they're working on. And
well, I think too, Chrissy, it's so exciting that they don't have to remain strangers. And I've made some really cool
connections there
with painters from all over, and I'm finding it a real world of inspiration and yeah, like
me too.
Yeah.
So I'll see you on there next week.
Absolutely.
And I'll come check out your art tomorrow. So thank you for everything. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This has been a great, one of those incredible, wonderful talks that these have come to be. I got to tell you, I didn't think that I would ever take to the Zoom cocktail hour, but we figured out some kind of a nice balance, and it seems
that's a good title for the next painting. Take to the Zoom.
That's right, taking to the Zoom. And I feel like that's it. We're actually moving away from the Zoom now, but I'm kind of not ready. There's a lovely little cocoon about the Zoom that I'm enjoying.
Cool people, it'd be great.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I mean, we would never, unfortunately, in person, we would never do this. We would never take a moment to, the vernissage seems to be gone in life right now. And I feel like we're kind of recreating it. So I'm really grateful to everybody who came tonight. Eileen's show, Deja Vu, having been here before, is opening Saturday. Eileen will be painting in our wonderful live art stage on Main Street in Canmore.
When?
First thing in the morning from 10 until 2. And then she's going to come upstairs, paint covered to the opening and enjoy people after that. So she'll be outside for the 4 hours in the morning on Saturday morning, and then she'll come upstairs and we'll have an opening. And then the show will run. And I want to say I know the date, but it's 2.5 weeks.
I think it's the 3rd or something.
Yeah, it ends the 3rd, I think, or the 4th. And then opportunities to see it online. I'm going to remind you. So we have a 3-dimensional tour going up tomorrow. We have the wonderful preview lounge, which has been great for people to see all the video and the kind of process pieces of the show in development.
Is there a password with that?
There is. There's a password. It's password protected, but only because we just want people to kind of align and to be interested enough. So the password is I love art, all one word, all small letters, and just head in there. You can kind of mire around in there and see. We try to upload process videos as they happen, and any kind of a related articles, anything that's interesting around the show itself. So definitely kind of look around in there for more information. You can also message us if you want some more direct connection to it. We've got some small videos of the show in situ, so happy to do that if the 3D tour doesn't suit you. So please reach out, see it. And then if there's any further questions of Eileen, I encourage you to send a message and we'll get them on to her, and I'm sure she'll answer them directly.
Okay.
Quick question. So
yes.
The presentation was recorded.
Yes.
When and how can I go watch what I missed?
All of the recordings of all of these Zoom cocktail hours are up on our YouTube channel.
Channel, okay.
Yeah, so we have a YouTube channel. You'll see them up there, and they are in succession of how the timing that they've happened.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm just going to read out. There's some final comments and questions. Chrissy's question was, my question is, how much can she write off of her garden for her taxes? LOL. Good question, Chrissy. Thank you very much.
I'll set you up with my accountant.
I was going to say, and Tracy has said, thank you. Great conversation as she was leaving. And Barb 5, he said, thanks, Eileen. Looking forward to seeing your show. So much great commentary. So Eileen, we'll share that with you as well, but it's up on the YouTube channel as well. So please check it out. If you have friends that missed the Zoom cocktail hour, tell them to check it out. I appreciate everybody being here. Great seeing you all. Anybody on a chat still? I'm seeing chat still. No, it's just Dawn wrapping it up.
Okay. Goodbye.
Goodbye all. Good night.